and here is my presentation on Experts Speak on the Types of Child Sexual Offenders by Rebecca Ledbetter for Psychology 496. Here is a brief overview of the types of child sexual offenders. Child sex offenders have been classified into different groups based upon their motivation for committing sexual defiant behaviors and crimes. These different classification structures utilize offender characteristics and/or victim choice information, including interpersonal and situational characteristics, acquiring the framework for analysis. Research has been conducted to see which category sex offenders fall into based upon the criteria that they use to commit the criminal act. Types of child sexual offenders. There are different types of child sexual offenders that have been determined through study and research. This area of research is important for the simple fact that it will save a child from the harsh reality of being sexually abused. This research needs to be reliable and accurate. Developing typologies requires sound theories about how and why offenders could be classified into different categories. What do the sex offender levels mean? These are levels of risks that are assigned by the court as to the offender's chance of repeating their crime. In other words, the court assigns a convicted sex offender a level. There's a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3. Whatever level they're assigned tells how high of a risk they are at repeating their sexual crime. What kind of treatment can a convicted sex offender receive? This type of treatment is serious and is very different from other therapies for adults. It focuses on learning specialized strategies for stopping abusive behaviors, being accountable, and taking responsibility for the harm that's done. My second slide. Types of child sexual offenders. There are 3 basic types of child sexual offenders. The first one is pedophilic. The second one is perpetual child sexual abusers, and the third one is situational child sexual abusers. However, according to the research, there are more in-depth classification and typologies that have been developed to provide a better understanding of defiant sexual behaviors required for the treatment and intervention and effective supervision. Classifying child sexual offenders is difficult due to the vary in economic status, gender, marital status, ethnicity, and sexual orientation. According to Hansen and Busseri, one important aspect of classifying child sexual offenders is whether they are pedophilic or non-pedophilic. Studies show that factors related to the generalist explanation of sexual offending, including school failure and involvement with delinquent peers, all increase the odds of an adolescent becoming a stable, high-rate sexual offender. Studies show that age, gender, poor education, and socioeconomic status are very similar among child sexual offenders. Introducing our experts. Expert 1, Dr. Shepard Piercy Clark, holds a PhD and a Master of Arts in Counseling Psychology. Works as a marriage and family therapist. Dr. Jill Shepard Piercy Clark focuses on helping people discover why they might be relating and behaving the way they are, and gives them the tools to create change, transforming their inner world and relationships. Dr. Clark specializes in sex therapy, among other areas. Expert 2, Dr. Catherine Cundy holds a PhD and a master's and a bachelor's in psychology, also holds a master's in counseling psychology, is a licensed marriage and family therapist. Dr. Catherine Cundy is a professor at National University where she teaches the Masters of Counseling program. Dr. Cundy also specializes in many different areas, including sex therapy. Expert 1, Dr. Jill Shepard Piercy Clark. Dr. Clark is trained in cognitive behavioral therapy, which assists clients in changing core beliefs by identifying thought processes which are keeping them stuck in dysfunctional patterns of behavior. She sees research behind sex offenders as insightful and helpful in her practice. Here are 2 websites that I found on Dr. Clark's website. Expert 2, Dr. Catherine Cundy. Dr. Catherine Cundy is highly trained in teaching Masters of Counseling. She incorporates influences from several theatrical models, but has come to realize that the core to effective therapy is a strong and trusting relationship between the therapist and the client. One of the reasons this is important is because dysfunctional relationships are often at the core of one's behavior and one's suffering. Dr. Cundy believes that research is the key to treatment. Here are 2 websites that I found on Dr. Cundy's website. Compare and contrast. Dr. Jill Shepard Piercy Clark. Number 1, changing odd behavior patterns. Number 2, developing healthier behavioral patterns. Number 3, attaining a better understanding of oneself. Dr. Jill Shepard Piercy Clark implements ways that a sexual predator can develop behaviors that create a much safer environment for the children that are around them by helping them understand why they have such behaviors in the first place. Dr. Catherine Cundy, number 1, learning to break free of dysfunctional patterns. Number 2, implementing trust within the relationship with clients so they can heal. Number 3, person-centered and emotion-focused therapy approaches. Dr. Catherine Cundy implements the ability for clients to heal and find the power that is at times limited by trauma, grief, stress, and faulty coping so they can truly begin to change and heal. 2 common areas of interest between Dr. Jill Shepard Piercy Clark and Dr. Catherine Cundy. They are both interested in providing psychological help to those that sexually abuse children, and they are both interested in the psychological research behind child sexual offenders. Here are my references. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and learned as much as I did.